you're doing well. Well, this is week 26. That means we're halfway through the year. 2023, flying by. I don't know where these years go, but they go fast, faster and faster. Life is just flying by. Let me just talk to you for a moment, kind of reviewing what we spoke on Sunday. Now, in 2 Timothy chapter 3, Paul goes through 19 aspects of what he would consider to be hard times. These are going to be hard times. And we talked about this on Sunday. You can listen to the message from last Sunday, or the Sunday before, by the time this airs. But the truth is, we could say that those hard times have to do with these incredibly violent times that will occur prior to the return of Christ. And I'm not in any way discounting that, but it also could mean just culturally, when you look at a culture, how do you know when a culture is on the verge of actual decay? When it's a sign that it's almost reached its pinnacle. It's gone as far as it's going to go. It's in decay. And I think perhaps this is what Paul was talking about. He was living in the Roman culture, which was a very disturbing culture to live in. One that allowed for many things. The descriptions are, in many ways, how can I say it, pornographic. I don't know how else to describe it, the way that many of the people lived. But for each and every one of us, it's interesting to me that this always begins with self-love. There's this ideology that allows us to divorce ourselves from others and the effects that we incur on others, things that we do to them. So the beginning of a hard time in your marriage is when you become more important than your spouse and your family. The beginning of a hard time personally in your life is when you are very absorbed with your own specific needs and have no concern for anyone else's. As a believer, the beginning of the hard time or perilous time in your life is when you are so absorbed with what you're doing and how you're doing it, and you have no real consideration for the world that is around you, that God has placed you in, the time that God puts you in. For us as believers, to see what's going on in our culture, our nation, let's just talk about our nation, the inequities, the injustice. And I mean injustice as justice truly is, supposedly blind, not decided by any other element than right, what is truly right, what is truly wrong. The fairness and the equity in justice that's come under tremendous scrutiny. Can I say it? I'm not even sure there is such a thing in many of the proceedings in our nation today. These aspects of people that put their own ideology or beliefs or their own opinion above all others to the hurt and damage of others, it's a sign of hard times. Now, as Christians, we could be, I remember the poem that you've probably read it yourself, First They Came for the Jews, and I said nothing. And it just goes right on down. A Lutheran pastor, Niemöller, that wrote that, it ended up that they came for me, and there was no one to advocate for me. We as Christians aren't in this for the fight, but we are prayerfully in this, I hope, taking a stand in terms of our prayer life, the way that we address the culture around us, not in a vindictive way, but realistically, honestly looking at what's going on, prayerfully taking it before the throne of God, hoping and believing that God is going to be moved by our prayers, our intercession. It's interesting, you go through that list, there's many various aspects, For example, in the center of the list, disobedient to parents, the breakdown of the home. And then the end of the list, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God, more involved with what life is offering us than we are with making decisions that are pleasing to God, putting our own pleasure and enjoyment above service to Him. Look, serving God is demanding. It's joyfully demanding. I don't know how else to describe it. There is a cost involved. It's a cost of our own personal lives in many ways, some of our own assets and time and strength and many of the pleasures that we could have that the world enjoys freely, we set aside for service to Him joyfully. It's just the way it is. And oftentimes believers have been swept up and kind of become indifferent to the world and just kind of gone along with what the culture is offering. But what's really interesting about the verses that we studied on Sunday, and I'll close here, is that in the end of this, what we see is that the people that are hurt most are the foundational elements of our culture. The mothers, the widows, the children, by extension. Families are disrupted. And can't you see very readily in our culture that many of the beliefs that we've embraced in this nation are undermining the ones that are being harmed and damaged are families. Men that are have no longer even a sense of what in humility manhood truly is, leadership in terms of their relationship to their God and their home. This kind of bravado manliness that has replaced, or even worse than that, this femininity that's taken over manliness. And women have been in many ways demeaned and belittled and ostracized, not allowed to live in the distinction of their nature. The two being different, but yet being one. Something that we've been discussing on Wednesday nights. And obviously, the end result of that is that children themselves become disoriented. If there is no, as in our nation, stability in a marital union, it is the children that suffer. The statistics are overwhelming and alarming. If everything that we say we believe in this nation for our social structure were true, then it would produce good fruit. It hasn't. But the Bible does. A believer. This is where we as Christians can stand out. We can speak to the world around us simply by embracing the truths that God has placed in our heart. The truth of a marital union, a commitment to one another, a co-sharing in life, a complementing each other, embracing the distinctions, the differences, and the unique elements of each one, and then respecting one another and bringing that into the home in the presence of the children. Look, there's no guarantee that everything that we ever do is going to work. 100% people have their own choices, and children grow up and make their own choices. But the best we can do in Proverbs 22:6 is train up a child in the way that he should go. And he won't quickly depart from it. They'll have to have that in the back of their mind. Look, let's not let the world tell us how we should live. Till next time, friends. God bless you.